Some teachers are crediting the power of prayer for rooting out abnormal behavior at schools. But is Satanism in the classroom on the rise, or are troubled pupils simply crying out for help? Later, we're at the first International Maths Olympiad ever to take place on the African continent, where Africa still lags behind decades after independence. This is Checkpoint, and I'm Nkepile Mabuse. We cannot show her face, but her story is too heartbreaking to ignore. She's accused of being a Satanist, and prayer is the only treatment she's received thus far. Teachers say she's possessed. Neighbors and even her own family fear her. Tragically, her poverty has deprived her of what some experts believe she needs: psychological assistance. Producers Megan Lubka and Musibudi Ratlebiane compiled this disturbing report.
Ngangihlele deskeni ngezwa umuntu ngingamboni ngezwa umuntu angihlebela hamba kuphaphama unegazi elisese fresh. Mangifika nami ngaya kuphaphama.
Wamenza kanjani?
Ngezipho kanje. Bese ngamunye ke. Ngizingathi ngidla something emnandi so. Mhlawumbe kube ngathi ngiphuza ijuice.
Duduza, an impoverished community on the East Rand. Here, drug and alcohol abuse amongst teenagers is rife. And pastors say an interest in Satanism is growing. But is it?
With regards to Satanism, what we've seen that is emulating from the schools is this pattern, this phenomenon called Illuminati. And parents don't understand it at all. And even learners, most of them, they don't understand what they get into.
At Mosibone Secondary School, behavior patterns of learners are becoming a serious concern.
They started disrupting classes, right? And over and above that, they started confessing to others that they were agents of Satanism. And then some of them have writings, you know, the writings, the symbols, and that is why we picked it up.
There is nothing that is impossible with God.
So alarming is this behavior, Pastor Tsubudi of Shabbat Ministries is called in. His mission is to rid learners of evil spirits through the power of prayer.
So even in life, there are certain rules that you need to follow. Therefore, these 4 friends, you must avoid them. They come masqueraded as friends, and yet they are enemies. I said it's bling. You still remember? Let's all say it together. It's bling, power, fame, and pleasure. Avoid them. So, as I was saying, in Satanism and in Luciferianism, they use this type of friends or these things to lure you into them. For the grace of God is no end.
And has what you call a faith-based organization. The department is taking this serious. When there is a bout of that, they are able to send pastors from various religious sectors into schools.
Teachers tell us this plan worked at Mosibone School, but at a primary school in Duduza, a mere 20 minutes away, educators faced an even bigger crisis. Here, children as young as 9 are said to be involved.
Whilst we were in the meeting, we heard some noise coming from the sides of the toilets. And when we noticed that there are learners in those toilets, teachers ran in and they found out that there's a learner who's doing some strange things to other learners. Some learners were seeing blood coming out from this learner. Some were seeing her changing her eyes and saying strange things and swearing at them. So that's how we became aware of it.
Toko, not her real name, is now 13. She wasn't expelled for her behaviour despite calls to do so from horrified teachers who witnessed a scene 4 years ago. Where some may see a psychological problem, the principal here is blaming it on the devil.
She is possessed, but having been possessed doesn't give us an opportunity to say, let's discriminate her. Let's teach the child, let's take the child as a child. Whilst in the meantime, religiously so, we are doing all means possible to divorce her from such spirits.
Teachers claim that she used to be a cheerful and cooperative child. So what changed?
ngaqala mina ngilele ekhaya ngizilelele vele mangiphaphama vele ngiyaphaphama kungathi ngiyalwa ngathula vele ngalala futhi ngezwe isigubhu singikhalela ngabona umuntu ezakimi wangibuza ukuthi ngifuna ukuba yini ngathi mina ngifuna ukufana nawe.
She claims the voices told her to kill her family.
Banginike umuthi base ngifakela amayiziphini ngizobulala ifamily yasekhaya. Ugogo wagula makagula kanjalo ke bathi ngifike ngimkhombe ngaleziphi bangifake kulumuthi ngamkhomba asesibhedlele vele iphuluso. Mangifike esibhedlele vele azange kufike mina izinyama yami kwafika umoya bangifakile lazipho lela ngafike ngamkhomba vele washona.
Toko claims she killed her aunt and her grandfather in the same way.
In the spiritual realms, it's true, they hear the voices are as true as you hear me, and the only challenge is that they adhere to the voice, and the voice is overwhelming, very strong and very commanding.
You know that there are definitely psychotic features, as in hearing voices, maybe obtaining commands from the voices, etc. Those things are present, but then also a type of a conduct feature, antisocial picture also emerges in terms of being unruly, not sticking to rules and regulations. So, you know, we easily use the words psychotic, antisocial, psychopath very loosely.
Toko says the voices gave her the power to control all children.
Umuntu angihlebela hamba kuphaphama unegazi elisesefresh. Mangifika nami ngaya kuphaphama ngafika ngambamba isandla wathi ngimenzani ngathi uzala kubonisa enye into ngamenza shoke ngamunye igazi. Bengizingathi ngidla something emnandi so mhlambe kube ngathi ngiphuza ijuice.
Her mother is terrified.
Angifuni uqamba makube ngimsaba kahle nje bengimsaba. Ngoba ngikhumbula kwenye games engimsabe bengino30 bhela ambhedi nami ngihlobisa ngine ezikhona ezingubo zabantwana zinento ezicrocodile intontoni. Ayibheke ingubo ayibheke makayibheka umbona ngcenga inyembe savuka lemithambo yakhe umbuzo ukuthi ukwenzani athule athi umbona ukuthi ukwathi manje ngisabe nami mangihleli naye endlini.
Fear and rumors spread through the community.
Bebangisaba abantu mina bangakhulumi kimi batshela abantu ukuthi bona bayangisaba. For ukuthi mina ngihamba Satanism.
Nabayidlala nabanye abantwana bayamxosha abanye abazali ukuthi uzofakela labantwana lezinto.
Toko describes to us a blissful outer body experience in her mind where she travels and meets other spirits at a dam near her home.
Mhlambe sidla amagazi wabantu namathumbu wabantu. Esingena lapha bakhona abantu abaletha ukudla. Angithi khona abantu abafile babathatha emamoshari bashiya umuntu so bakhipha amathumbu. Wena mawabona ubona ngamathumbu mara kusuke kungasemathumbu. So wadla amathumbu wabantu. Mangifika la endlini ngizizwa mayikhonto eyidlile wrong bese ngiyahlanza.
For the past 3 years, both Pastor Tabudi and his wife have been praying tirelessly for this 13-year-old.
After praying for her, we saw that she was back in her senses. She's able to focus in class.
She admits she's starting to control this evil, but she still has vivid experiences. Toko has not been clinically assessed. She's receiving spiritual counseling only. But is this enough? Toko's revelations may be delusional, even psychotic, but not yet violent. Earlier this year in Dobsonville, Soweto, 2 schoolgirls were found murdered. Their hands and necks were disfigured by strange cuts. Razor blades and 3 black candles were found on the gruesome scene, all suggesting a satanic killing. Then, in Itswatwa on the East Rand, last year a 14-year-old boy claims that he was instructed by voices to murder his entire family. He hacked his grandmother, mother, brother, sister, and even a 3-month-old baby to death. The boy was arrested and charged with murder. He is currently undergoing psychiatric evaluation at Sterkfontein.
Sometimes the communication is broken down in homes. Sometimes they come from broken homes themselves, where there's no clear parental structure, there's no discipline, there's no interest, there's no money. And they find these alternate methods of escape to express themselves.
Toko is on a spiritual journey to recovery, but voices still haunt her. She has never received any psychiatric help.
Sometimes nginokuthi ngizwe bengathi uma ngibulele kuba ngathi khona umuntu ongigijimesayo bese mina bengingagijimi ngenyawo zami bengathi ngine something amaphiko so bengathi ngiyaflya so mabangibamba ngiphinde ngiphunyuke baphinde bangibamba.
When we return, we ask whether the authorities are taking appropriate steps when dealing with these cases. In March last year, the Gauteng Education Department partnered with religious leaders to try and stop school children from experimenting with harmful spiritual practices. This week, we ask whether these children are properly diagnosed and whether prayer alone is enough. Religious diversity in South Africa is upheld and protected by the Constitution, even Satanism.
First of all, it's not a crime. It's protected in the Constitution, but there are different forms of Satanism. Numerous Satanism. What we do find is people who become obsessed with rituals and with entities. Those are the category of, let's call them occultist Satanists, who become involved in crime because they want to serve something, someone, and they feel that they cannot progress in whatever they do unless they prove their loyalty towards this entity through ritual.
So, was Togo engaged in Satanism, or is she just a highly disturbed young girl?
Well, my reaction firstly is that of shock, but also not only shock, concern, very, very concerned about what is happening. I think I need to just give a context on our intervention with regards to issues of this nature. That firstly, we've said that we can't run schools on our own, and hence we've come up with a slogan that says education is a societal priority. So we get all structures in the communities, in the society involved in running our schools, and therefore we have a structured partnership with faith-based organizations. In fact, we have a provincial steering committee that we have a relationship with. And in that community, it's not just, it's Christians, it's Muslims, it's Hindus, it's all kinds of religions that sit in this structure. And what we do is we give psychosocial support to schools. So we give support in terms of psychological counseling. We also give support in terms of spiritual care. What came to my mind as I was watching this video is that we really need to pay attention to the psychological side.
Looking at this piece alone, there's not enough evidence to say that it's Satanism. From a policing perspective, we work with what can we prove in court, not what do we think happened or speculate. Because there's a possibility the individual, the suspect, might be on a narcotic element, which influenced his or her behavior. Is that person clean of drugs? Does this person have a psychiatric disorder? Yes or no? If all those things are cleared away, then we can start looking at drawing the supernatural in.
The authorities are concerned that she's getting spiritual intervention only.
If that was my child, I would be concerned. And I will get professional help. And I will go holistically. Because there might be an underlying medical condition which no one is aware of. So, and the spiritual side is critically important as well.
The department has now promised to get Togo psychological help. But Lamprecht says he has recently picked up another disturbing trend: vampirism.
We do find that more and more children are into consuming blood. Now, there's not a crime referred to as vampirism, but there are certain health issues involved in that.
He warns that far too many children are being left to their own devices.
Children don't need our money, they want our love. And if you as a parent are not going to spend time with your child, someone or something else will.
When we return, this is hardly the picture that comes to mind when one thinks of a maths professor. We asked Professor Mamokgethi Phakeng whether she thinks Africa will ever catch up when it comes to maths.
It makes me sad that you go to the Maths Olympiad, that you don't see people who look like me.
Besides the fact that this week we're hosting the International Maths Olympiad in Cape Town, there's very little else to celebrate. Most African countries are regressing when it comes to maths. To say these teenagers are good at maths would be doing them a disservice. They live, eat and breathe the subject. While their peers are enjoying school holidays, they're crunching numbers, preparing to compete against the best in the world. More than 500 pupils from 106 countries are taking part in the International Mathematics Olympiad, which is being held on African soil for the very first time. Budding mathematician Sanjeev Ranchod is one of the youngest members of our team.
Only a little bit of it is talent. Lots of it's just hard work and putting time into it, and you also need to enjoy it a lot. If you don't enjoy the maths, you're not going to be any good.
Of the 6 South African team members, 5 are from the Western Cape and 1, Nashleen Govindasamy, from KZN. Every year, majority of our contestants are boys, educated at private or former Model C schools. And only once has a black South African made the team. That was in 2002 when Theo Mokgatle from St. Dominic's College in the Free State qualified. It's a situation that has Professor Mamokgethi Phakeng concerned. She's the first black woman to obtain a PhD in mathematics education.
It makes me sad that you go to the Maths Olympiad, that you don't see people who look like me. Why is it that we're not getting more black learners, women students, being interested in extracurricular mathematics? Why is it?
She says it is no coincidence that countries where learners consistently perform well in maths competitions like the Olympiad turn out to be economically successful.
The Asian countries are always the top 4 in the teams. Okay, it's not coincidence. They take maths seriously, and they were not always there. They made an effort to be there, and focusing on education, focusing on mathematics in particular. Mathematics is important not only because it helps us produce more engineers and people who can come up with innovations that can advance our country, but also because it's important for every citizen to have mathematics, to be able, even just to hold our politicians, the media, and whoever to account about the promises that they make to us. Mathematics is important.
1992 was the first year that South Africa participated in the Maths Olympiad, and 2000 the year we achieved our highest rating, 27th out of 81 countries. Since then, we have slipped to number 58. This is more than likely a direct result of the deteriorating standards of learning in South Africa's schools. Professor Pakeng says poorly qualified teachers have been further destabilized by constant changes to the curriculum.
The teacher gets comfortable with the curriculum and then it changes. They've got to do a new thing. But I think we've got to stop. Okay, no curricula in the world is perfect. We've got a good one. It's progressive. It covers essential areas in mathematics. We've got to stop and say we must work at getting good at implementing this. You know, we can't change again. I'm glad that the Minister of Basic Education didn't change, because it means we won't change again, because sometimes it changes with the minister.
She's also concerned about the growing popularity of maths literacy, which is an easier subject.
The aim was to make sure that you produce a mathematically literate citizenship. But the way it's been taken up in schools is hugely problematic, because what happened is that schools and learners took it to be the replacement of standard grade maths. And so they think, well, if I can't do this math, then I'll do this maths. And then they get an A in maths literacy and discover that it doesn't take them anywhere.
The secret to cultivating a love for maths among young people, she says, is to make the subject relevant to their circumstances.
The hairdresser who does dreadlocks and braids, how much profit they make per day, and how much, and this is how much time they have. So how do they make a decision what they spend time on to make the maximum profit?
ENCA correspondent Letitia Naidu put ordinary citizens to the test by asking them to solve problems given to Olympiad contestants.
He looks just as lost as I am.
Yes, absolutely. I don't think it's fair to give such questions to the children.
If we were to give you money to work this out, do you think you'd be able to do it?
Maybe, yeah. I'd be a lot more motivated to try, I think.
First, I think we should tell our children that it's important that they're excellent in everything they do, not just mathematics. That's important, and I think it's a message that our young South Africans don't have. It's important that we want to be world-class in everything, whether it's art, history, geography, mathematics, science. We've got to strive to be world-class.
That's all from us this week. Please do give us your feedback and story suggestions. Our Twitter handle is @checkpoint_ENCA. Thanks for watching. I'm Ngepile Mabuse.